Chapter 2002, A Sword That Divides in Two. Li Changgong and the others stayed in the Deep Blue Kingdom for the next period of time. King Jin told them about the history of the Deep Blue Kingdom and their important mission. I believe you should already know about the existence of the Druckers. These beings are the most terrifying unstable factor in this world. Because of them, one civilization after another has disappeared into the long river of history. The demise of the fourth and fifth generations had a lot to do with them. The angels who raised our race once participated in a great war against the Druckers and ultimately paid a huge price to seal them away. We were asked to stay in this area and guard the seal of a Drucker titan named Mammon. But now, the seal has been weakened. King Jin's expression became serious. He should indeed break the seal at this time, but due to the emergence of the Yihan tribe, he was forced to break the seal. This is actually an excellent opportunity. Because he needs to endure the punishment of the Creator Kagago's will, coupled with the heavy blows dealt by the Yihan tribe, he is in a very weak state. If we can take this opportunity to strengthen the seal, perhaps we can delay the time it takes for him to break the seal by hundreds or even thousands of years. That would at least buy us some time for peace. For the Druckers, hundreds or thousands of years were insignificant. Perhaps it would only be a long sleep. But for 6 generations, it would mean space for many generations to live and reproduce. They couldn't think too far ahead, only about the present. Black Tortoise asked King Jin, "Your Majesty, what do you need us to do?" Black Tortoise was actually a little uneasy because the 3 of them were no match for Prince Matsuri and the 2 generals of the Deep Blue Kingdom, let alone being able to help much. At most, they could return to the Huashu Kingdom and inform them of the situation, and then cooperate with the Deep Blue Kingdom. But in that case, they would have to see how the Xinjiang region and Zhangyi would react. King Jin said to them, "Reinforcing the seal is a risky business, and we cannot do it safely on our own. Therefore, I hope that you humans can help us. This is for the future of the entire 6th generation." Li Changgong took a step forward and said earnestly, "We will definitely convey your feelings to the upper echelons of the land dwellers. In fact, we are all people with considerable influence in a powerful country of the human society on land. We will work hard to make this cooperation happen." King Jin nodded with satisfaction. He looked at Li Changgong and was quite fond of this quick-witted human. "Prince Matsuri has already told me about you. Li Changgong, you seem to possess very powerful abilities, but you don't know how to use them." Upon hearing these words, Li Changgong's eyes dimmed slightly. "I am Heaven's will." This ability symbolized his confidence. He had once believed that there were few people in this world who could withstand the sharpness of his sword. Until he was defeated by Zhang Yi, his confidence began to disappear. It was an extremely embarrassing defeat, and it happened in front of many high-ranking officials from the 6 major regions, completely shattering his resolve. Since then, his sword had been filled with hesitation, and his heart was filled with anxiety and irritability. A series of reactions even led to him being betrayed by his subordinates and losing control of the northwest region. But immediately afterwards, King Jin pointed at him and said, "If you don't mind, I can give you some guidance on your ability. After all, in a country where civilization has never been interrupted, our ancestors left behind textbooks on the development and use of supernatural abilities." Upon hearing this, Li Changgong's eyes flashed with an intense light. King Jin was undoubtedly powerful, and if he could receive guidance from such a strong person, perhaps he would be able to better develop his abilities. "Really? Your Majesty, I will never forget your kindness. I will do my utmost to bring about an alliance between the Deep Blue Kingdom and the human world." For the next period of time, Black Tortoise, Vermilion Bird, and Li Changgong stayed in the Deep Blue Kingdom, absorbing the sun fruits given to them by King Jin while receiving one-on-one guidance from him. The essence of the sun fruit was almost identical to that of the spirit of sacrifice, and the sun tree was a natural spirit absorption device. With it, the Deep Blue Kingdom became the ruler of the underwater world. After absorbing the sun fruit, Vermilion Bird and Black Tortoise both grew significantly. However, Li Changgong was the one who gained the most. King Jin took him to a vast, barren area at the bottom of the sea, surrounded by rampant seaweed. It was here that King Jin also showed his abilities. He transformed into a giant golden crab, shining like pure gold, and the two huge claws made a sound like swords clashing as they opened and closed. The reason I see talent in you is because your abilities are similar to mine. As King Jin spoke, the claw on his right side opened with a clang and cut down toward the ground. There was no violent collision. The moment the claw approached the deep sea floor, the earth was cut open into a crack several kilometers long. It was silent and caused no tremors on the seabed. The cut was as smooth as if it had been made with a paper knife. Li Changgong's eyes widened when he saw this. This ability was very similar to his own. I am Heaven's will. My ability is called Dividing Blade, and I can slash anything in two. This seems to be different from your ability, because your ability is to split designated targets within a certain space from the spatial dimension. Essentially, your ability should have a higher limit. However, you have not fully utilized your ability. Li Changgong listened carefully, holding his military sword in his hand. Please instruct me, Your Majesty. King Jin said to Li Changgong, I don't want to say something grandiose like, there are no useless supernatural powers, only useless mutants. However, the power of supernatural abilities is closely related to the level of development of the mutant itself. He raised his crab claws, showing off his golden body. My strength lies in my sea beast form itself. 2 breaks is an aid to strengthen my attack ability, but I don't rely on it completely. Even without using my abilities, I am still powerful. Your fighting, however, relies too much on your supernatural abilities. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can master your abilities to their fullest, that's also a skill. But your development of your abilities is insufficient. Chapter 2003, The Moon in the Water. As he spoke, he continuously opened and closed his golden crab claws, like 2 massive golden scissors, making a clanging sound. Now, try to fight me. Use your abilities to the fullest, don't worry about hurting me. I will only use my body to fight you, I won't use diving blade. King Jin was extremely considerate of Li Changgong because with his strength, killing Li Changgong in seconds was a piece of cake. Li Changgong was touched. King Jin was like a sword master teaching his junior. Alright, Your Majesty, watch out. Li Changgong directly drew the 2 long swords from his waist, activated the flying cloud steps underwater, and closed the distance between them. I am Heaven's will. The sword aimed directly at King Jin's body, but he still maintained basic etiquette and did not aim for his vital points. The sword blade cut through the sea water at great speed, but King Jin was even faster. Despite his huge body, he moved with ease in the deep sea, making only a very simple movement to dodge the sharp edge of Li Changgong's sword. The only real threat Li Changgong posed was the arc of his sword blade. Once he avoided the sword blade, Li Changgong's threat would be greatly reduced. Continue. Your weapon is your sword, but you are too slow. How can you hit your opponent like this? King Jin scolded. Li Changgong's eyes narrowed. Being scolded like this, he immediately strengthened his attack. He swung his sword faster, but he couldn't keep up with King Jin's speed. King Jin used the side of his crab claws to strike Li Changgong. Boom! The sea water surged, and the crab claw's attack speed was more than 10 times faster than Li Changgong's sword. His body was knocked flying by a huge force. Fortunately, King Jin had held back his strength and did not crush him. You see, this is your problem. Your basic strength is too poor to bring your powerful supernatural abilities to their fullest. Your attack method is too simple. A sudden attack may have a surprising effect, but once your opponent understands your abilities and dodges your first attack, you're done for. You should be an assassin. You're not suited for direct combat. King Jin's voice was like a bell ringing. As for me, I'm not worried about my abilities being exposed. That's the difference between you and me. Li Changgong finally stabilized himself at the bottom of the sea. Hearing King Jin's lecture, he gritted his teeth and said somewhat resentfully, you have powerful natural talent and the sun fruit to enhance your strength. With just this body, you are already unstoppable. But I am just a mere mortal. King Jin looked down at him and said in a cold, deep voice, then use your brain. If you really want to rely on your abilities to achieve a one-hit kill, haven't you reached the limit of your abilities? These words made Li Changgong's eyes widen, as if he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. In the past, he had always believed that as long as he improved his sword speed, he would be able to make a huge leap in strength. However, as he was not an enhancement mutant, no matter how much he trained, he was still fundamentally different from those monsters. Relying on technology and armed armor, he was no match for Zhang Yi. But he had never doubted that I Am Heaven's Will was the most powerful offensive ability in the world. But why couldn't I Am Heaven's Will be upgraded? Did it have more potential? Li Changgong was lost in thought. Seeing this, King Jing did not continue fighting him, but returned to his mermaid form. Think about it carefully. The most important thing in developing your abilities is to use your brain. Even the simplest ability, once developed, will have endless uses. After King Jing finished speaking, he suddenly raised his crab claws. In the sky, bright moonlight suddenly appeared from an infinite height, shining down on the deep sea. Li Changgong was stunned, not knowing what kind of technological ability this was. A full moon was reflected in a pool of water in front of him, swaying gently. King Jing pointed at the moon and said to him, "Look, no matter how sharp your sword is, can you cut the moon in the water? Think carefully about this question. If you can figure it out, then I think your training will be complete." He left Li Changgong there to ponder and practice. Li Changgong thought about it for a long time. He knew that he was facing a major decision. The road ahead was unclear, and only by firmly choosing one path could he join the ranks of the strong. Take Zhang Yi, for example. From the beginning, Zhang Yi knew very well what he wanted. He focused almost all of his abilities on defense, and only when his defense reached its limit would he extend and develop his offensive abilities. If you want everything, you will end up with nothing. Li Changgong fell into deep thought. For several days in a row, he held his sword and pondered his future path in the desolate seabed. Li Changgong sat in front of the pool and stared at the moon in the water for 3 days and 3 nights. The mermaids of the deep blue kingdom were very enthusiastic. Perhaps they thought he was a rare beast, so many of them came to watch, but Prince Matsuri stopped them. However, he, Narumi, and General Yu came over to see if Li Changgong could break through his limits. After absorbing the sun fruit, Black Tortoise and Vermilion Bird also gained some enlightenment, so they came here to see how Li Changgong was doing. When Vermilion Bird saw the moon in the water, his eyes widened. Is this reasonable? Why is there a puddle at the bottom of the sea? Li Changgong heard Vermilion Bird's complaint and pointed to a spot not far away. Look over there. Vermilion Bird and Black Tortoise looked at the reflection and saw several people sitting around a fire roasting something. It turned out that Prince Matsuri, General Yu, and General Minghai had been watching for several days and were bored, so they built a fire not far away and roasted rice cakes on wooden sticks to eat. Is this reasonable? Is this really reasonable? Vermilion Bird was too exhausted to complain anymore. Don't worry about the details, Li Changgong said, continuing to lower his head and stare intently at the moon in the water, thinking about how he could split the moon in the water. Vermilion Bird was really curious. She stared at the puddle for a long time but couldn't figure out what it was. She only felt that it was clearer and more transparent than ordinary seawater. She walked over to the bonfire where Prince Matsuri and the others were. When she got closer, she could hear the 3 of them talking. At this point, the language of the merfolk had already been recorded in the intelligence system, so they could communicate normally. As soon as she arrived, she heard General Yu complaining.